Right, hi guys. This is our English for the week. There are going to be 4 lessons: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. This is lesson one, so my hope is that you will listen to lesson one, then go and do the work from lesson one, listen to lesson two, do the work from lesson two, and so on. So we're going to start off this week by we are going to be looking at flashbacks. So I want you to think about the use of flashbacks. Now, flashbacks are used to tell something in the past. We can see here the Friends guys, they used it quite a lot in The Fresh Prince. They use it a lot in Disney films. So think about the use of flashbacks in films, TV programs, and books you have read. And can you make a list? If you can, in each of those cases, how do we know the character is having a flashback? It could be wavy lines, it could be going to black and white images, soft focus, it could be what they're wearing, it could be a different time or a different place. So have a think. If we look here, we can see it's a flashback because we can see the different hairstyles and the moustache. If we look here, we can see that they're much younger than they are at this point of the film than when they were at the start of the film. And there's also some characters here that we find out later on in the film had accidents with capes or were destroyed by syndrome. So just pause this and write down a list, please, of things, films or books where you can think of where there might be a flashback. So give it a pause. Okay, so my list of flashbacks, I had Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So in the new film, the film was a flashback sequence showing Willy Wonka discovering the Oompa Loompas, a scene which featured in the book but was not included in the 1971 film version. There's The Incredibles. The movie starts with a flashback sequence showing the Incredibles in action during their heyday, so when they were like really popular, when they were allowed. Finding Nemo, the film features a sequence showing Dory and a flashback sequence of Nemo being captured by the scuba diver after she meets him. Harry Potter does it in The Order of the Phoenix, so Harry's nightmares are a flashback. And then in Toy Story 2, if you haven't seen it for a while, it's great, you should watch it. Jesse's story and life is told us through like sequences of flashbacks. So that's what a flashback is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to listen to now a chapter of a book, a Harry Potter book, and I'm going to ask you to listen to the first chapter, and I want you to tell me which of the things are happening in the now and which of the things are happening in flashback. And I'm going to ask you to make a list. Now, that's all I'm really going to get you to do today, because when is the beginning of the story set? So the past was when he was a baby, and now he's 9 or 10. And what are the incidents we learn when Harry was little? So what are the flashbacks from his past that we hear about? There was the time that, or he could remember when he, that kind of stuff. And then what are the events happening now? So like the events at the zoo and that kind of stuff. So listen to the chapter, and I want you to make a list of events from his past and the events that happen in the now of the story. So see if you can come up with 4 or 5 from each. And once you've done that, then we'll move on to our next lesson. So Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and this is lesson 1. What we're going to do then is you're going to listen to it, you're going to have a go at thinking what's in the past, thinking what's in the now, and then we'll move on to our next lesson. Okay, so we have got lesson 2. Welcome to lesson 2. This is going to be a bit more about you guys and a bit more about what you remember. Because what I'm going to ask us to do is think about ways that we can write a flashback. So if I'm writing a flashback, I could write it in many different ways, and this is what we're going to be doing this week. You guys are going to be writing your very own flashback of your very own memory. So we're going to be thinking about flashbacks can come in diaries or dreams or memories or daydreams or time travel or magic. So dreams as part of book 4 in Harry Potter, memories in book 1, diaries and time travel devices. So things like the pensieve we're going to have a look at from the Harry Potter books and the Harry Potter films, but not just yet, because what I would like is I want you to think about and then write about a memory you have of the past. So I want you to provide the necessary information. I want you to give me insight into your character and elaborate the setting. What does this mean? Well, basically, everything that is in your past, every kind of flashback, every moment that you've lived, tells me about you, gives me insight into who you are and what you and why you are the way you are, and also lets me know maybe where you grew up, or what it was like when you were little, where you were when you were little. That gives me the whole setting. But we're going to have a bit of fun with it today. So this is lesson 2, and I want you to think about why J.K. Rowling doesn't describe Harry's childhood in detailed chronological order. We don't need to know from the moment he is left by Dumbledore on the doorstep through to his childhood. It would take far too long. it really isn't what the book's about. And the start of the story has to be that Harry's becoming a wizard. So if it was like, and he was left there, they picked him up, they took him inside, and they changed his nappy. Oh, what shall we do with him? They said. And if it was like word for word everything that was said in his past, then obviously it's not going to work. It's going to be boring. You're not going to want to be interested. So, which is what I want to know about a flashback from one incident from your past. So I want you to write down a short account of your earliest memory or memories in the past tense. So I remember being 6 years old and sitting around the Christmas tree. I had opened some boring presents, socks, a jumper and some sort of paint set, and I was desperate for an Optimus Prime. This was not any toy, it was an exploding, transforming mega toy. I was handed the next gift and what happened? But I want your earliest memory. It could be absolutely anything. Try and make sure it's a memory though. Try and make sure it's not a picture or a story you've been told. It could be from when you were 4, 5, 6, 7. It could be a birthday party. It could be anything to do with going out and playing with your friends, or something to do with your family, or going abroad, or it could be something that happened. I remember very early on breaking my arm. So it could be something like that. So I can think and then write about a memory I have of the past. So all you're doing today is you're thinking about a memory that you have of the past, and then we're going to come on to lesson 3 at a different point. But for now, it is just about you writing down a memory you have of the past. Don't worry too much about spelling, don't worry too much about punctuation. We're going to tidy it up later on in the week and we're going to use it for something else. So pause it here and we'll go on to lesson 3. That will be coming up next. Okay, so lesson 3, when we look at this, we are going to be thinking about yesterday's memory, the memory that you wrote down. And I want you to think about what makes you think back to it. Could it be the weather? Could it be some food? Could it be a place? Could it be a date? Could it be smells? So when you smell something like maybe cooking, or something that you know, like a cold wind, or a type of tree or something like that, does it bring back that memory? Is it when it's raining and you're sat inside bored, does it remind you of it? Could it be a type of food that you taste? Could it be a date? Mine was Christmas. So is it always a date, or could it be a place? You go back to a certain place where maybe you fell off the swings or something like that happened. So I'm going to think about yesterday's memory, and we're going to think about what's going to go on. So we're going to write a dialogue in a flashback memory, and we're going to have a go at our flashback. So you're going to use your memory from yesterday to write a flashback. Start it in the present and then use one of the techniques we've discussed to flashback. Write it in the first person. So for mine, for example, it could be I stared out of my kitchen window. Cold rain beat on the brown grass and bare trees. It took me back to that other rainy day 7 years ago. The day that had started just like this. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my ellipsis ... Once I've done my ellipsis, then I can leave a line and go into my flashback. Now, how you decide to start your flashback, you can either do action, dialogue, or description. So I could start with dialogue. So once I've gone from a day just like this. Andy, are you coming down? Shouted Mum. I ignored her, more interested in the worm I'd found in the garden. Andy, she shouted again. Or it could be, the day had started just like this. As I ran into the garden, I stopped so suddenly that I nearly fell over. I bent down to pick it up and felt it wriggling through my hands. So that's my action. That's me moving around. I'm not describing it. Now, obviously you can tell there was a worm on the grass. So with this one here, the day that had started just like this. The small creature sat among the short brown grass, the sun beating down on it. It was wriggling slowly as if it was in pain. I looked at it carefully and wondered what to do. So, and then I could use a mixture of the three. So I could have my action, my dialogue, or my description. So, the day that had started just like this. I know, I'm going on. Pacing across the brown, dry grass, I headed for the small, wriggling creature. The garden was empty and the sound of my footfalls echoed in the afternoon air. Exhausted and overheated, I arrived at the bottom of the garden. I picked up the worm and walked inside. Can you help me with this? This worm. I found it. I found it in the garden, I gushed, leaning across the kitchen counter enthusiastically and beaming at my mum. She was on the phone. Oh, I know, Cassie. I told him time and time again, but would he listen? No. Reaching out a disinterested hand, she took the worm from me and looked down. She screamed when she realised what I had handed her. I sat on the old kitchen bench. I tried to calm my mum down by making her a cup of tea, getting the biscuits and putting them in front of her on a patterned plate. She had placed the worm in a small saucer with a little water from the tap. The worm did not move. I waited. So, what you're going to do in writing out your in writing out your flashback, you're going to start with the present. You're then going to go back into the past. You're going to try and show and not tell. Build it up. Don't give it away too early. So I didn't just say, I walked down the garden and got a worm and gave it to my mum. See if you can build it up a little bit like I've done here. Write in the first person and try and write in the past tense. So that's our lesson for today, and it might take you a little while, but that's good. Keep you busy, keep you out of your parents' hair, and then we're going to go on to our next lesson, which will be our final lesson, writing our flashback when we come out of our flashback. So pause the video now, come back to it for lesson 4. Here we go, lesson number 4, nice and sparkly because it's the end of this week. So I stared out of my kitchen window, cold rain beat on the brown grass. I've already read you that bit. Now what I want you to do is go back over your flashback, have a look at it, think about editing it, and then I just want you to come up with a way to come out of the flashback. I jumped as the thunderclap woke me from my daydream. The memory was still vivid in my mind. I stood up and walked to my whatever it is. So what did I do next? And then what are my thoughts about the memory? So have a think about what are your thoughts about that memory, and how could you explain it? So with my one it could be, and every time now I walk down the garden, I keep an eye out for worms on the, I don't know. It's entirely up to you. But have a think about what you could do there. So that's your writing for this week. Please go back and look at any of the bits you need to look at before. So we've gone all the way through and we've done all of our lessons 2 and 3 and 4. So see if you can have a go at all of those, and I will hopefully see you all soon.